I made 426 million GP in 3 days off of RuneScape's newest update, but it might not be in the way you expect. Here's how I did it. The biggest RuneScape update of the year is finally here. Yama, a new demon boss, is now in the game. Now, you might think that when a new boss gets released, killing it the day of release for its new drops is the best way to make GP, but surprisingly, it wasn't. Some players discovered some unusual ways to make hundreds of millions of GP off some of the new items that came into the game. And while some methods no longer work, many still do. Let's start things off with my favorite. So Yama drops the new Oathplate armor set. It consists of the Oathplate helm, Oathplate chest, and Oathplate legs. It's currently the best armor to use against enemies that are weak to slash, since it provides the best slash bonus in the game. Pretty cool, I think it looks alright, but get this, you can actually smith the armor, and the way you do it is super weird. On release, the helm, plate, and legs of the Oathplate armor could be made by using two items, Crushed Infernal Shale and Oathplate shards. Oathplate shards are an uncommon drop from Yama and can be bought on the Grand Exchange. On release, you needed 350 of them per Oathplate item that you made. Crushed Infernal Shale can be obtained in the Chasm of Fire. If you head there and take the chain all the way to the bottom, then run northeast and past this fire, in here you'll find Infernal Shale deposits and Infernal Shale rocks. Mining both of these will give you Infernal Shale, which when you use a hammer or chisel on it, will turn into Crushed Infernal Shale. The Infernal Shale is actually a pretty busted method as well, more on that later. If I had one complaint about this place, it'd be that the decoration feels a bit lacking. It would look way better with some disc plates if you ask me. Disc plates are unique, high-quality metal posters that you can hang just about anywhere. Recently, I finished watching Avatar: The Last Airbender for the 100th time and saw that disc plate had some Avatar artwork, and I immediately ordered some different designs. Unboxing and seeing the posters is the best feeling because I know the room I plan on hanging them in is going to look so much better. Disc plates hang on your wall with a unique magnet mounting sticker. No drill needed, it's safe for your walls and it's super quick. Mounting this disc plate only took 3 minutes. If you want, you can have all the disc plates displayed at once, or you can just pop one off and put on another if you feel like swapping. This plate has over 2 million different artworks available in their catalog. Star Wars, Halo, Disney, anime. Search something up and I'm sure you'll find something you love. My favorite disc plate is my Ba Sing Se one, which is a disc plate textra and features things like tactile textures and 3D contours. I think it looks stunning. If you use my link in the description, you can get an exclusive discount for your new disc plates. One disc plate is 33% off, 2 disc plates gets you 37% off, and if you order 3 or more, you get 42% off your order. Your metal poster should arrive in only 4 to 5 business days, so it gets there super quick. Make sure to click the link in the description to take advantage of my exclusive offer, and thanks again to Displate for sponsoring this video. Okay, so with 1,920 Crushed Infernal Shale and 350 Oathplate shards in your inventory, it's time to make the Oathplate armor. Sort of. First, you need to combine them and make Infernal chunks. This can be done by smelting 28 of the Crushed Shale and 5 of the Oathplate shards. After making the chunk, you take it over here and dunk it in the pool of Ichor, or Itcher, or Ichor. Who knows? There's a joke in there somewhere. But as you can see by this quick bar, you only have a few seconds before it needs to be taken out. That gives you just enough time to make a new Infernal chunk while waiting for your previous one to cool down. As you can see here, the method is just to go back and forth between the furnace and pool, cooling down your old chunks and making new ones. You could just wait each time for the chunk to finish cooling down, but that is significantly slower than just clicking between the furnace and the pool, which is already pretty easy. Jagex definitely intended for it to be done this way. Once you get into the rhythm of this, it takes less than a minute to get 10 Infernal chunks, the exact amount you need to make an Infernal plate. An Infernal plate, which requires 83 smithing to make, is made by clicking on this anvil over here and smithing it. But you'll have to smith it in an incredibly unique and weird way, something we've never seen before. Instead of just letting the game smith it for you, you have to actually smith it yourself. Every single game ticks, so every 0.6 seconds, you need to click on the anvil. If successful, the progress bar will go down. If you mess up, you'll need to restart. And that's pretty much it. Just keep clicking every tick until the bar is done. You will need to wait a few ticks after the bar is 0 while you wait for the character to flip the Infernal plate, but then you just begin the clicking process again. The number of times you do this feels a bit random, but usually it's around 10 to 11 times per Infernal plate. When it's finally done, you receive a nice 1,250 smithing XP and an Infernal plate. Perfect. Now, just do that entire process 6 more times. Yep, 6 more times. In order to make a piece of the Oathplate armor, you needed 7 of these Infernal plates. Since each Infernal plate takes around 1 minute and 30 seconds to make if doing efficiently, you're looking at a little less than 11 minutes to make enough plates to make a piece of the armor. Now here's where the most important decision is. What piece of armor do you make? This is where the Grand Exchange comes in. Both the shards and shale can be purchased on the GE. Let's take a look at one of the trades I did. I bought 350 Oathplate shards for 182 million GP and 1,960 50 crushed shale for 4.625 million GP. That means we spent a total of 186.6 million GP. Now, to find out what piece of armor to make, you need to pay attention to the current selling prices of the items. I can confidently say that you should never make the helmet. It's way cheaper than the plate and legs, and you'll lose an absurd amount of money. Usually you should be fine making either the plate or the legs, it's just that sometimes one of them is going for maybe 1 to 2 million GP more than the other. If I saw that was the case, that's the one I would make. In this case, the oath plate legs would make me more money, so I clicked on the legs and waited an awkward 15 seconds that involved multiple random black screens, but there it is. We finally have a piece of the oath plate armor. I saw that the oath plate legs were selling for around 199 million GP, so I listed mine for 198.9 million GP, and after a couple minutes, they sold. The one unfortunate thing about selling an item this expensive is the GE tax takes away some of the profit. You can see here that 1.989 million GP was taken away from the sale, but because we made a bit over 196.9 million GP, and the supplies cost us 186.6 million GP, we profited 10.3 million GP in 15 minutes. As soon as I realized this, I knew exactly what I was doing for the rest of the day. The profit potential from doing this was way too insane to pass up, so that's exactly what I did. For the rest of the day, I clicked on this furnace, on this pool, and on this anvil thousands of times, making infernal chunks, infernal plates, and either the oath plate chest or legs. Now, since this was day of release, prices were extremely volatile. Every 30 minutes, it felt like the armor was going up 5 to 20 mil in price, or down by 5 to 20 mil, which made this a bit risky. But since the gap between the cost of the shards and plates and the armor itself on the GE was so big, it was actually pretty lenient. Even if you got caught during one of the drops in prices, you could still make between 2 to 3 million profit per piece. And if you got lucky and bought the shards at a cheap price and then it rose rapidly while you were making the armor, you could walk away with some absurd profit. Methods like these don't come by every day, so I just decided to keep going. Why stop? For the rest of the day, I bought shards and shale and smithed. Bought more shards and shale and smithed. Bought more shards and shale and smithed. By the end of that first day, I had smithed a combined 32 oath plate chests and legs and sold them for a total profit of 201.7 million GP in a day. I didn't go into the Yama boss fight a single time and still made over 200 million GP. Needless to say, I was ecstatic, but then something else happened with this method that changed things a bit. More on that later. By the way, we're less than 800 subscribers away from 400,000. This video coming out might be the reason I finally hit it, and it's something I never thought was possible, so if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. It means a lot. Thank you. The next day, margins were still great, so I did it for a few more hours, but I kept getting DMs about a second money-making method that came into the game with the release of Yama that was making people hundreds of millions of GP that once again had nothing to do with the boss fight itself. That method was crafting the brand new Aether Runes. Aether Runes are a brand new type of combination rune. The rune counts as a soul rune and as a cosmic rune, so any spell that requires either a cosmic or soul rune can use this new Aether Rune. This rune can be used in a bunch of different ways, but most importantly, it means you no longer need to have both a soul and cosmic rune in your rune pouch at the same time, at the cost of, at the moment, being quite a bit more expensive. Now, usually, combination runes only require you to have one of the different types of runes on you to make the combination rune at the opposite rune's altar. For example, to make a lava rune, you need to bring earth runes to the fire altar while wearing a binding necklace and using magic imbue. But the Aether rune requires you to have a second item, and that's an Aether catalyst. Aether catalysts are dropped by Yama. He drops 850 of them at a 1 in 13 rate. It's one of his most common drops, and with how much he's being killed right now, a ton of the Aether catalysts have come into the game. To make one Aether rune, you'll need one Aether catalyst, a soul rune, and one pure essence. While wearing a binding necklace and using magic imbue, use the soul rune on the cosmic altar and you'll make an Aether rune. Only downside is you'll need 90 rune crafting to do this. Now, usually I'd complain, but I actually grinded out 95 rune crafting last year, so I'm just happy I can do this. Currently, this is very profitable. On day 1, Aether runes were going for over 1000 GP, which meant that even just normally rune crafting them, you'd be making a lot of GP per hour. But a second method was being done to make even more, and that's crafting Aether runes using Scarred Extract. I've covered Extract in previous videos, but I'll quickly go over again what it does. In the Scar Essence mine, you can mine tainted essence chunks and deposit them into this ventriculous opening. The chunks can then be withdrawn as 4 different types of extracts: warped, twisted, mangled, and scarred. Depending on the extracts you use, you'll get bonus runes while rune crafting. This usually isn't a great moneymaker and is mainly done for Ironman accounts to get a bulk amount of runes in a quick amount of time at the cost of quite a bit of GP. But today, it's going to be making us a ton of GP. Since Aether runes require 90 rune crafting to be made, we need to use Scarred Extract. At 24k per extract, it costs quite a bit of money to use, but don't worry, we'll be making a handsome amount of money back. To test out the profit from this, I deposited 20 million GP into the coffer, which let me take out 833 Scarred Extract. Each Scarred Extract gives you 60 extra bonus runes, and with Aether Runes being so expensive at the moment, I'm talking 4 to 5 times their current listed price expensive, there is money to be made. On top of the bonus runes from the extract, I'm also wearing a full set of the rune crafting robes you get from the Guardians of the Rift. If you wear the full set, you'll receive bonus runes while rune crafting. Wearing the full set gets you a maximum bonus of 60%. Between the extract and the robes, we are crafting an absurd amount of runes. Since you need to use the Cosmic Altar for this method, you'll need to use the Fairy Ring to get to Xanaris and run south to the Cosmic Altar. I'm just using the Fairy Ring in my house because it's the fastest one. My hat is attuned to the Cosmic Altar, so I don't need a Cosmic Tiara or Talisman to get in here, which is really nice. Once you've made it to the altar, make sure you have your Binding Necklace equipped, click the Magic Imbue spell, and then use your soul runes on the altar, and boom. Just like that, you have made Aether Runes. If you're using a pouch to carry more runes, which you hopefully should be, especially at 90 rune crafting, go ahead and craft the rest of those Aether Runes. As you can see, instead of crafting 61 Aether Runes from the 61 pure essence I had, I actually crafted 3,757 Aether Runes in just a few game ticks. That's the power of the extract and the robes. So that's pretty much the method. I teleported to the crafting guild, refilled my pouch, and started the process again. In terms of XP, I was getting a little over 70k runecrafting XP an hour. Definitely not the best XP per hour you can get doing this. I was doing it, I would say, more casually than efficiently, but that still seems pretty good. So it only took me 15 minutes to use up all of those Scarred Extract, and I had crafted 51,353 Aether Runes. Now, before we see how much we made, we have to look at the input costs. The Scarred Extracts cost me 20 million GP, I used 913 Soul Runes, which cost me 199k, and the 51,353 Aether Catalysts cost me 8.73 million. In total, a little less than 29 million GP. The Aether Runes, after 5 minutes of waiting, sold for 693 GP each for 35.9 million GP, which means 15 minutes of crafting Aether Runes with Scarred Extract made us 6.9 million GP. Multiply that by 4, and a full hour of doing this would make us around 28 million GP an hour. That is unreal, such an insane amount of money, but there's one thing holding this method back. Well, maybe two things. You need a lot of money for Scarred Extract. The 20 million I spent on the extracts was gone in 15 minutes, so you need a lot of capital. But the bigger thing is the Aether Catalysts have a buy limit of 25,000. The only reason I was able to do this for 15 minutes was because I hopped on 2 alt accounts I had and bought more Aether Catalysts. Remember, I used over 51,000 of them in 15 minutes, so with the buy limit being only 25,000, you either need to be consistently buying these for a long time on one account before being able to do it for hours at a time, or have an army of alt accounts buying constantly on the side. Now, while it would be awesome to have a higher limit, it's probably a good thing because otherwise this would go a bit too crazy. Crafting Aether Runes normally without the extract means you shouldn't really ever have an issue with running out of catalysts. It's mainly just if you're doing it with the extract. Now, I was late to the party on this method since all I did on day 1 was smith Oathplate armor. I missed out on some of the runes selling for over 1,200 GP each on day 1. Some lucky players who discovered this early, using the rates I had, may have been making close to 15 million GP in 15 minutes just crafting the runes. Again, the buy limit really does hold this method back, but even just doing it for 15 minutes to make 15 million GP is nuts. Even the 7 million GP I made in 15 minutes is crazy. I feel like it can't be understated just how much money players were making out this update who weren't even killing the boss, who this update was centered around. And you know what's crazy? There's still another method people did and are still doing to make money. Let's head back to the mines and talk about Infernal Shale. So, like I mentioned earlier, the Infernal Shale that I was using to make the Oathplate armor can be mined here. Currently, each individual crushed shale is selling for around 2.9k. There's 3 different ways you can go about getting them. The first is the Infernal Shale deposits. There are 2 of them here. These act exactly like the pillars of dense runestone that you mine up in Arceus to get dense essence blocks. Just click on them and you'll slowly collect the Infernal Shale. This is very AFK and a chill way to collect the shale, but it's by far the slowest. You'll get around 220 per hour this way, equal to around 630k GP an hour. If you want to step it up a bit, you can just mine the Infernal Shale rocks. These act just like any other rock in the game, just click on it and wait to get the shale. This is significantly faster than just doing deposits, and it'll get you around 800 shale an hour, equal to 2.3 million GP an hour. Finally, we have the absolute fastest way to get shale, and that's tick manipulating them using this brand new item you get from talking to Jim the Imp right here. If you tell him that it's too hot down here, he will give you Jim's wet cloth. If you use the wipe option on the cloth, it will start an animation where your character wipes their forehead with the cloth. After this animation, if you successfully click on a rock on the correct tick, your character will do this big mining swing animation and have a much higher chance of successfully mining some shale. I think it's pretty pretty obvious this is a reference to being sweaty, hence the wet cloth. But what's kind of interesting is I think this is the first time Jagex has directly added something to the game and told you that it helps with tick manipulation. Now, you guys know I'm not a big fan of tick manipulation. In fact, usually you couldn't pay me to do it, but to be honest with you, using the cloth isn't too bad. After wiping your head with the cloth, there's just enough time to chisel a shale before clicking another rock. So if you get into this rhythm of wiping your head, crushing some shale, clicking on a rock, wiping your forehead, crushing some shale, clicking on a rock, you can get up to 2,000 shale per hour, which means that with this method, you'd be making over 5.8 million GP per hour with current prices. That is just absurd. What makes this method so good is that you actually get more crushed shale per infernal shale if you crush them right when you get them. For some reason, if you have more than one shale in your inventory while crushing them, multiple of the shale will occasionally be crushed without any increase in output. If you were to get a full inventory of shale and crush them all, you'd be on average getting 1.3 crushed shale per shale. But if you crush them individually as you get them, you'd be averaging 1.6 crushed shale per shale. Nerd numbers, I know, but over time that's a pretty big difference. You only need 78 mining to get the shale, which makes this a very easy way to make bond money. Even if you just AFK the shale by using the deposits, it's a great way to earn some GP at the moment. Now, I actually combined two of these methods. I had one account, Bond Waster, AFK mining the shale, and my main account, Soup, making the Oathplate armor. Every so often, I would trade over the crushed shale I had mined on Bond Waster, which meant I saved money on needing to buy the shale myself to make the Oathplate armor. As you can see here, I made 7.7 million GP on this Oathplate leg trade instead of the around 1 million GP I would have made if I needed to buy the shale. Though I also could have just sold the shale outright as well and still made great money. Either way, the point I'm getting at here is that this mine here currently has multiple money-making methods that make you some of the best money in the game. I love this place. On day 3 of the update, however, something changed. As you can see here in the screenshot I just showed, I needed to buy 450 Oathplate shards to make Oathplate armor instead of 350. That's because Jagex came in with a couple of big changes. First of all, they made the Oathplate armor 30% rarer as a drop from Yama. They also changed it so you now need 450 Oathplate shards and 2,520 crushed infernal shale to make any piece of the armor. Fittingly, this is also around 30% more of each. Because of this, Oathplate armor shot up around 40 million GP in price. Thankfully, it looks like profiting off making the armor is still very viable. I did a couple of hours to test this and was still making amazing money. In fact, the last 2 trades I did, I made 7.9 million and 9.1 million GP respectively. It does, however, now take around 5 minutes longer to make the armor, seeing as you need to make an extra 2 infernal plates, going from 7 to 9. That means you've got a bit more clicking to do when doing this, but let's be honest, to me, if I'm averaging 10 to 25 mil an hour on a method, a few extra clicks are totally worth it. In fact, I love doing this method so much that I went from 90 to 91 smithing just from smithing Oathplate armor, even though the smithing XP an hour is not good at all. I just kept doing it and making more money. After 3 days, I had made over 400 million GP, mainly off smithing Oathplate armor, but also sprinkling in some of the Aether Rune crafting as well. As you guys might not know, I'm a big spreadsheet guy, so it was really fun tracking all my trades and just seeing the profit go up and up. And that number is still going up because as long as this method is profitable as it is, I'm not stopping. The money is just too good and I definitely need it. With Gillinor Games Season 5 coming up, the starting prize pool isn't going to pay for itself. You know, who knows, maybe I'll buy some Wimplings as well to speed up getting clue scrolls in hopes of getting some 3rd H. Anyways, I just thought it would be cool to share my story of how I was able to make some insane money off a new boss being added to the game without ever stepping foot into the boss fight. I'll see you guys in the next one.